Well, good to have you with us here on the Monday edition of the South African Morning. Let's go back to our exclusive story now. The Krugersdorp Samurai Killer has been released on parole. I take you back to 2008. The then 18-year-old Morne Harmse went on a murderous rampage at his school with a sword. One pupil was killed, another 3 were left wounded. Fast forward now to 2022, and he's being granted an early release. But a psychological report has advised against this, saying he's still a danger to society and himself. So how did we get here? Clinical psychologist Dr. Gerard Labuschagne joining us. Dr. Labuschagne, good morning. Help me understand recommendations made about possible parolees, especially around a crime as severe as this. How did we get here where where Morne has been released on early parole nonetheless?
Well, in a way, your guess is as good as mine. The parole board's a complete mystery to me. I've been involved in a few processes, and I still don't understand how they make their decisions. I think part of the problem is you don't have experts sitting on the panel. I mean, there aren't psychologists on the panel. There aren't social workers. What they do is the parole board receives reports from DCS psychologists and social workers, etc., and the parole board interprets those, and the parole board then makes recommendations. For example, I used to give a lot of training to correctional service psychologists who said they would get these referrals back from the parole board, from lay people essentially, with the most bizarre referrals for further treatment. The Donovan Woodley case, the guy who murdered Lee Matthews earlier this year, he had a parole hearing. I was involved in that. And one of the referrals back from that parole committee was that he must get therapy for the love of money. I mean, it's just bizarre. I don't think the public really understands. These parole hearings I don't think they're up to standard and what they should be. So you get a lot of decisions that seem to make no sense. I mean, they seem to often put a lot of emphasis on, have you done lots of training courses, these little short courses that they offer to offenders, which is valuable. But then you get someone like Morne Harmse in the 13 years he's in prison, hasn't done a single one of them. Yet he's granted parole. So seems to be no objectivity in how they make their decisions.
And from what I understand, in speaking to Barry Bateman off air as well, he's joining us later on the show, even the reports suggesting that he's even had issues inside prison. There's been anger issues, there's been outbursts, there's been fights with other inmates as well. It's not as if he has been a Class A parolee, has he?
No, look, I mean, I was actually involved in his first parole assessment in 2019. I was asked to be an external person to do an objective assessment, along with the 2 DCS psychologists who were involved up until now, and at the time a DCS criminologist. So I have intimate knowledge of this particular case when I assessed him in 2019, and my report back then was that he has more of the concerning risk factors than before the incident. A lot of the motivations and issues of why he committed the crime were actually still present now. And that I think my report ended off, if I can quote, Mr. Harmse says, if he's released on parole, we will be setting himself up for failure that could have dire lethal consequences for innocent persons and himself. It's highly reckless to release him with his current level of risk. And as you point out, in the past 2 years since that assessment's taken place, he's had multiple offenses inside the prison, violent offenses, thefts, and you name it. It's not going well with him. And I don't say these things lightly, but I think this is a point where we have to act in the public interest, not only in this case, but in other cases of what's going on with these parole boards.